Welcome all to the hunt, and today we shall be hunting the hunter himself, Ebony Odogaron. The Ebony Odogaron is fantastic. A lot of people will disagree with me on this, and let me just say straight up, I'm sorry that you are wrong. The Ebony Odogaron is done fantastic. There's still a bunch of things I think I still don't like about it compared to the original Odogaron, I'm just saying. But overall, I think it's a very well done variant, which, although the lore is pretty much just Devil Joe except he's smaller, I still think it holds up relatively well. First of all, I am a huge fan of small, aggressive monsters that aren't overpressing. The only fast monster that I don't like is the Odogaron and the Kirin. Kirin because he just jumps all over the place, and Rajang because I don't need to explain myself. But every other small monster or fast mobile monster, Nagakuga, we're talking Legion, we're talking Viper Tokubidachi, I am 100% fine with this, and I actually really like him because it makes for a tremendous fight where you need to be on top of your tippy toes all the time, and not only do you have to have good positioning, you also need to have really good prediction patterns too, so you need to be more aware of how the monster will position himself into a favorable position. So that's why I really like it. So with that said, let's go over a few of the elements that I really like about it. First of all, what the Ebony has in terms of design, it is a lot more prominent than its original counterparts. First of all, its color scheme, which is a lot more purple and dark blues and just dark, just purples all together. I'm colorblind, don't quote me on this. But yeah, overall, those colors really define evil a lot more, and it just gets you into that malice scenario. It doesn't convey the, say, perception of like a savvy hunter, but of like an unflinching, uncontrollable mass of terror. That's what it feels to me. And again, I don't know about you other folks, I don't mind the original red look of the original Odogaron because it felt a lot more like an actual predator, while this one just seems like a crazy terror that just roams all over the place. With that said, the second most and biggest changes to the Ebony Odogaron is also the smoke, the dragon blade that he cannot control as he tries to consume it, for spewing from his mouth every time he eats, and it just goes and makes him go into overdrive, completely making him blind. What a fantastic piece of design to convey to somebody that a monster is currently enraged. Just like the Basilgeuse with his scale lining up, the Ebony Odogaron has something that is defined as to how and when he's actually enraged and how he goes into an enraged state. And it's a beautiful piece of design that I wish more monster did outside of just puffing from the nose, because it's a lot more prominent here, and it gives Ebony a lot more character too by doing that. With that said, the Ebony Odogaron also gains a dragon element from this fight, and unfortunately dragon doesn't change the fight a lot more outside of neglecting some damage. You can deal with the elemental weapons such as dual blades and bow, perhaps sword and shield if we have to go this way, but that is unfortunate to say the least. It's not that it's undoable, and it's not that it cannot be done, and it's not like it's that much of a worry, and nobody will pretty much counter that every single time. The problem is that aggressive monsters don't let up, and the same design element still applies to Odogaron. The fact that it just nullifies your damage to me isn't as much of an interesting mechanic as, say, I don't know, dealing damage to your HP bar every time you try to move is from the original Odogaron. There's still a couple of tactics to make him substantially easier. By far the easiest one is this Shield Spire Stooge that will make your life so much easier to have a fast monster just jumping about, being focused on single points so you can get damage. Outside of that, the main addition to his kit will be jumping Dragon Volley attack, so he does gain a projectile, but not a normal projectile. How the Ebony Odogaron does a projectile is that he jumps in the air and then launches a ball of dragon blight at you, which is a strange way to go about a projectile since he doesn't do like the standing fireball like most monsters do. But it is one way to do it, to say the least, and I can't say that I'm mad at it. I'm just very interested that they would choose to do that way to it. You see, he only gained once projectiles from the jumping attack. However, I will say something. Trying to predict or reading his jumps for that projectile is hard, and knowing where he's gonna strike with those is also pretty unpredictable. It's not completely undeniable. I mean, it's not like good positioning can get you out of the situation. It's just that they're hard to understand, and it does make the fight unpredictable, which in some way or fashion I do prefer. That was bullshit. If you don't know what happened there, the Gajakalaka threw a spear at me, killing me in the process. That was bullshit. With that said, let's go look at the math, shall we? So here are the id zone values for the Ebony Odogaron. Again, we're looking strictly at cutting damage for this video. However, if there ever was a monster that I'd say go for elemental damage, it's your boy Ebony Odogaron, because my god, this boy be weak. He be looking weak when it comes to elements. So please, 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 please bring in some elemental damage when you're going up against this beast. With that said, the average when it comes to elemental value will hit an average of 39, which slightly above average, especially when it comes to later encounters in Iceborne and World, so that is pretty good. The head is looking a mighty 43, which is really bad, but here comes the part that you will not see, and that is completely different from the original Odogaron, is that pretty much every major limb or major point of damage, so we're talking his hind leg, forelegs, mouth, and tail, can be broken for significant amount of damage afterwards. So while the head is looking fairly low at first, if you break it, which doesn't take too long considering the low health pool of the Odogaron, you will do significant more damage at a 65. Neck, body, back, you pretty much never care about those anyway unless you're fighting an area with heavy slopes like I am right now, so it's all a matter of perspective when you fight and how you fight and which weapons, so that's all circumstantial, and even so, it's still pretty contextual to where you're fighting. It may be part of the fight for a total at most, at the very most, a total maybe of 10% of your hunts while fighting this dude. It's so inconsequential in most scenarios. The forelegs out of 34 and gets increased to 45 after broken, hind legs 30, 50 when broken, and the most important, tail 25, 50 when you're cutting damage. So that is how it is. Unlike the original Odogaron, where if you broke apart, it would pretty much change nothing. To me, the Ebony seems a lot more realistic when it comes to you break apart, thus making it weaker because you're actually damaging it. It's like you're cutting through the skin or the scales of an animal. So if you're removing this part or you're breaking or slicing this part, it actually makes it more exposed and thus can deal more damage to it. That to me just makes straight up sense. And I really like about this. With that said, that does make the fight significantly harder. However, toppling the Odogaron is still the best way to go about going in this fight. If you have a weapon that's incredible at tripping or toppling, this fight will be such a breeze. Sword and shield, longsword, dual blades are incredible at any Odogaron fight because of their tripping potential. Again, the resistance for that creature is surprisingly low in so is health pool. So, thankfully for you, while this fight is incredibly aggressive, hardcore, and incredibly intense and taxing your brain, you will not have a terrible time because it will not last an incredible amount of time. You will only fight this thing for about 10 minutes, even though you don't have any skills, and you relatively know the pattern. It's not like you're fighting an Elatrion with 50,000 HP. This guy maybe has 20,000 HP at most when soloing, and if you don't have a good partner, you can CC chain this buddy to days. Granted, I had really, really good luck while trying this fight on, and thus it just makes the fight substantially easier. With that said, if there's ever again a place where you should fight the Ebony Odogaron, I believe that it should be in large areas we can easily evade. Corners and corridors and tideways and a lot of ledges are usually death zones, because it just means that you have less dodging potential. And while you have technically more leverage, he can reposition as easy as he just did there, making the fight a living hell to try and actually corner him. So big open areas or ledge open areas are slope areas are usually the best way to try and get not an advantage, but a leg up. While he will move a lot, it's not like Kieran where he moves in and out constantly. He will constantly circle around you, so you always have a open way, an open window to try and damage him without constantly him fleeing about, since he's just as aggressive with you. Which, by the way, if there's ever a tip I can give you to try and fight any Odogaron, be as aggressive or even more aggressive in your attack patterns than he is. The closer you are to the Odogaron, the easier the fight becomes. That's just the reality of it. It's simply a fact of the matter is that that monster can barely hold up when it comes to swipe attack, especially by its hind legs, which isn't a bad spot to actually hit him, as you saw that the hind legs can take 50 damage when they're broken. So you not only great hit zone value, you just have an incredible amount of sustained damage to this monster, and thus it just makes the fight substantially easier, or at least won't last a hell of a long time, unlike other. So I love Ebony Odogaron. Take him lightly. Take the doggo out for a walk. That was really fun for me. We'll see you all on another hunt.